Howdy, folks. Welcome back to Viva La Cats. I am your host, Justin Hiles, accompanied by my great friend, Joel Spencer. And we are here to bring you the very best of the Bearcats every single week throughout the football and basketball seasons. We are a 1012 podcast, part of the 1012 network. Make sure to check out our great network, the 1012. It's got everything from every single school inside the Big 12, providing great coverage from plenty of different views. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Charlie Hustle, always bringing the great merch. We're going to give you some cool options for this week later on in the show. Joel, we are currently recording on Wednesday night. As it stands, Hurricane Milton has started to make landfall in Florida. So, of course, all of our thoughts are going out to our UCF friends down in Central Florida, as well as those affected in Tampa. Still a very strong storm, and we'll see how all of that goes, but we're wishing them the absolute best and hoping that everybody stays safe and healthy there. Football is football. We have a game down there this weekend, but if it doesn't happen, I don't think anybody cares as long as everybody down there stays safe. So best of luck to them all that are down there. We are, like you said, wishing you the best. Joel, got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course, it's a heartbreaking situation. Of course, after a hurricane, Helene just swept through the southeastern states as well. So definitely just keeping everyone in our thoughts and prayers. And of course, helping however we can when it comes to the hurricane relief funds that come out afterwards. Keeping our eyes on the situation as it unfolds. But football comes secondary when it comes to events like this. And like you said, we just hope everyone stays safe.
Yep. And I'm, it's us having lived in Ohio as long as we have, everybody's got family. Somebody's got family down there. Somebody knows somebody. I have an uncle who lives in Marco Island. There's plenty of people that that you're close to. And even if you're not, there's plenty of friends that we've made online with the UCF community and, USF and others that are going to be directly affected by this. So like we said, wishing you all the best and stay safe, friends. With that said, I'm going to just bring this up real quick. So the Orlando Magic had a preseason exhibition against, I don't remember who, but they had canceled the game. And as well, the other UCF sports that were participating this week in games at home have either canceled, rescheduled, or relocated their games to the opponent's field. And so kind of an interesting situation because this seems like one of those things where you would expect the teams to be a little bit more proactive. Hey, let's just relocate the game to Cincinnati, or hey, let's find a neutral site. I don't know what logistics have really gone on in the meantime, but as it currently stands, the plan is just to play there on Saturday. And I think it's going to be tough too, because I would imagine it's probably going to be a smaller crowd. You have a lot of people that have evacuated. If it even happens, if the weather's clear, if there's not a lot of damage, I'm sure there will be a lot of damage around the Orlando area, which is going to affect people's ability to get to the game. People will probably be coming back from evacuations Friday and Saturday. I don't know why we haven't kind of just relocated this game somewhere else or just tried to reschedule it by now. But as it stands on Wednesday night at 8 p.m., this thing is still up in the air. And I don't know. It just seems kind of like this thing is coming, but it just seems weird to kind of have it as a play it by ear sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, what's coming. Essentially, it just boils down to what does the damage afterwards look like, which is never the best, thought process to have. But Sat in his presser today said the team was planning to travel on Friday, business as usual, and that weather for Saturday looked as clear as can be, which, of course, it's not the weather. It's going to be the aftermath. It's going to be the infrastructure, the damage to the homes, the community, the surrounding area. So, it's a very weird situation of, will this game happen? We don't know. And if it does, to what extent? Will it be relocated? What will, the potential turnout look like? So what will the field conditions even be? So there's just so much up in the air. It's kind of hard to talk about football right now.
Yeah, of course. And, I think it's just one of these situations where, you can only hope everything just goes to plan. Everything, ends up being okay. But obviously we're still waiting. So it kind of makes it hard to preview this game in a way, just because there are so many looming different conversations happening at the same time. But with what we can talk about, at least for this game, looking forward to it. Kiner is back. He was out during that Texas Tech game, went out super early. It was of course a huge effect on the game, and probably one of the big tide turners, sort of in the negative direction for the Bearcats, and made that game a little bit more difficult. But it's going to be huge to have him back after the bye week, got some rest, is healthy and good to go. So very much looking forward to that. Joel, what about on the other side of the ball there for UCF?
Yeah, I mean, RJ Harvey is a talented back. Even KJ Jefferson, they've got different pieces on offense, but specifically with Harvey, he's 13th in the country right now for total rushing yards. He has 600 on the season. Number 6 on that list has 615. So he's only 15 yards out from being very close to breaking the top 5 in rushing yards. So it'll be a ground attack for sure that we just have to be ready to defend.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a game that I think when you look at both sides for UCF and Cincinnati as far as offense goes, just ground and pound. I think the air ball is definitely part of the game, but I think where both of them sort of make their hay comes from running the ball, and some very capable backs. It's gonna be really interesting to see how this one plays out, because I think both of these teams come into this game with a lot to lose and a lot to gain in this, because UCF is coming off 2 straight losses. They just lost to Florida. I think it was like 24-13. And then lost the game before that. And so for Bearcats,
they got blown out the game before that. So they're on a bit of a losing streak right now.
Yeah, losing at home to Colorado like that, they got punked, and that's a little bit tough. But I think you look at that situation, you look at Cincinnati coming off the bye, which can be a good or bad thing. It affects every team a little bit differently, but coming off the bye after a really, really good offensive performance from the Bearcats in Lubbock. I think both teams are really kind of looking for that. This is our turning point game. This is where we're going to build the momentum for the late half of the back half of the season, and kind of trying to establish some momentum there. The biggest thing that I look at in this game right now is it's what it comes down to. I think more than anything is not talent, is not any of these other factors other than who wants it more. This is a rivalry game, of course. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second too, but this is a rivalry game now. Like it didn't start that way. It developed naturally in the American. This hasn't been a super long-standing thing, but it developed naturally in the American. UCF won a few games straight. The Bearcats won a few games straight. Now UCF has won the last 2 straight. Bearcats are looking to kind of get back with that. You also bring into factor the 3 Bearcats players that transferred to UCF. So that adds a little bit more of an edge. The grass is definitely not greener, especially when you go to a rival. You don't want to you don't want to let those guys beat you. You want to prove that you're the better program. And on top of that, you want to break that losing streak that you're currently on. The Bearcats have a ton to play for. UCF, on the other hand, in the same way, they got these guys. They want to prove that they made the right additions. They want to prove that they're a strong team and that they have, more to show than what they've shown over the past few weeks. They just have looked really weak. They've looked very beatable. After looking like one of the strongest teams coming out of the first few games. But again, they hadn't really played anybody yet. It wasn't a very difficult schedule up until they got into the Big 12 play. So you kind of look at the situation, and again, who wants this game more? Who really wants to take home this W for their season and establish that back half momentum? I think that's going to drive everything. And given the situation that's happening in Florida with Helene, and then also with Milton, you've got a lot of stuff too for UCF that they just want to get a win and they want to feel good and they want to prove that they belong. So it's going to be an exciting game if it happens. If it happens this weekend, if it doesn't get moved, it's going to be interesting for sure. And I think it's just going to add more fuel to the rivalry.
For sure. I would argue that UCF might have more to lose out of this game. Both teams, like you said, have a lot to gain. It's kind of a prove it game for both teams. UC coming into this season kind of being up in the air. how are they going to do? Whereas UCF came into this season, hey, they could contend. And especially, like you said, early season, they were looking like the real deal. And they've kind of been knocked off that perch a bit. Whereas the Bearcats have been pretty encouraged since we rebounded from that Pitt game. So I think that losing 2 in a row, having some rumblings as well about different players on the team, specifically the former Bearcats that are on that team, about just disgruntlements in the locker room and just with the team in general. I think they have more up in the air, where a loss would mean so much more to them. That I think, like you said, both teams really want it, but I think UCF has more to lose in this game.
Yeah, I would agree too. And I think, as much as we're going to say as Bearcats fans, like, we really want this game and we need to win this game. You still have,
it's a rivalry. I want to win this game.
Of course.
Don't misinterpret anything that I've been saying.
Zero misinterpretations. But like, I think what I'm getting at here too is like, there's no downplaying this game by any means. But like you said, for UCF, there is a lot to lose because you look at the rest of their schedule, you look at where they're positioned in the season, and you look comparatively to ours. This is a game that, like Cincinnati, you want to go and win that one on the road. But like you said, UCF, like, you don't want to turn that into a 3-game losing streak. You started off strong, but you didn't have a good strength of schedule. If you go and lose your first 3 Big 12 games, some people are jumping off the Gus train. You might lose a few more people in that, especially because I would imagine, not even imagine, I can guarantee that a lot of UCF fans look at Cincinnati not necessarily as an equal anymore, and they think that they have surpassed Cincinnati. Whereas I think we look at UCF and it's like, that's a team we have to beat as a rival. They're ahead of us right now, but we still feel we're the better program. You know what I mean?
I would say they're ahead of us in terms of their rebuild because both teams had their runs, right? I will say, Justin, before we move on, you missed a golden opportunity to say the Gus bus, and you said Gus train. So boo to you for missing that. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that UCF is the standard that we're trying to chase, but definitely, like, they feel like the more stable program based on their last couple years. Whereas we're still trying to figure things out. And this year has had some very encouraging moments, and we have a great opportunity potentially this Saturday or, whatever day this game happens, if it does. We have a great opportunity to keep our momentum going this season.
Absolutely. And we've got some thoughts on that game that we will get into a little bit later in our Viva La Cash segment, where we will, of course, take our lines of the spread, total, money line, so on and so forth. But before we get to that, Joel, you threw a little interesting tidbit here on the docket about rivalries. Explain it.
Yeah, I mean, UCF is a fairly new rivalry. We, of course, have old classic standing rivalries that go back to our old Big East days, some even from Conference USA days, and some that have just kind of happened, whether geographically or just through playing year in and year out. So I just kind of wanted to touch on, what are your favorite rivalries? We haven't gotten to play a lot of them. We had Louisville in the bowl game. We got West Virginia back by moving into the Big 12. We recently had our home and home with Pitt, where both the away teams won those. And unfortunately, they currently hold the more recent win.
You're welcome, Pitt, for putting you into the top 25, by the way.
They've looked pretty impressive. Looking back at that game, it takes the sting off a little bit, knowing that, hey, they're not a fluky team. They might actually just be good.
Yep.
But even the Miami rivalry, that future's up in the air. So just, Justin, looking at all of our different rivalries, what have kind of been your most memorable ones and kind of your favorites?
Yeah. I think, at least when I look at it, I think the one that I miss the most, which this comes from just basketball and football, because there was always so many back and forth games, and it was kind of a toss up on both for both sports each year. I miss that Louisville one, man. Like, I wish that was one that we could get back. Especially you look at, kind of where Louisville's been lately. They've with Braum, Now that we have Satterfield and that Louisville kind of connection there, directly coming from there, it's one of those things that just feels missing. You look at this Big 12 conference, you go in, you're a new face in a new school with a bunch of kids that know each other. And, it's just, you don't really feel like there's anybody that you've kind of made that connection with other than UCF. Houston, I think, is absolutely one, too, that we haven't really talked about. Of course, we've beat the crap out of them when it comes to football, and they've beat the shit out of us in basketball. Not even close. Like, I mean, we've had some tight games, but we're on like 9 or 10 straight losses there. That's one that hurts. But I think from, a perspective of what we lost in Louisville, what we lost in like Pitt and West Virginia back in the day, I think, those still exist to some extent. I think you're going to feel a lot more of these rivalries come out of this new conference. And what we previously had with Houston too, I think only grows stronger. What we previously had with UCF, I think only grows stronger because while these are teams that are very far away from you regionally, these are teams that you came in with came into the Big 12 with, and that you're obviously comparing yourself to because we're all part of the new four, right? And then you have an additional new four beyond that. In your little quadrant there, you want to prove you're the best. You want to do that week in, week out, sport by sport. And no matter what sport it is, you want to beat those teams because it proves that you're in a better place than they are. And I think for what it sits at right now, I still think as weak as Houston's fan base is, I would still consider them to be somewhat of a rival. It's not even close on either side, which makes it a little bit tough. When you have the back and forth, that's when it naturally develops. That's the best part about the rivalry with UCF. Of course, we've wiped the floor with them when it comes to basketball. However, with football, it's been so back and forth that I think that has naturally developed. So that's kind of where I look. And I think that that's sort of the future of these rivalries. And I think, as fun as the Pitt and the Louisville ones and, West Virginia might develop naturally again, still feels kind of like hey, you suck. We're trying to make this thing happen. And it's just feels like it's forcing it. I think it'll come with time, but the UCF one and the Houston one, I think they're naturally happening right now as we speak.
I agree with the West Virginia take, actually. That was something I was going to bring up. It kind of feels like getting back together with your ex where none of your friends are really for it, right?
Yep.
Like, you don't want to force it, but there's history there that, it might rekindle a little bit, but it just doesn't feel as strong as what it once was. I've got to say, Louisville as well, the Keg of Nails, one of the most badass, rivalry trophies. When you tie that in with the Victory Bell, I mean, UC has some pretty cool rivalry trophies that I'd love to keep in our trophy case, of course. But yeah, I mean, UCF has been such a great new rival. I think our time in the American really would not have been as successful if we didn't have someone like them kind of pushing us, in all honesty. Not giving them credit for our run, of course, because they love to take credit for that.
Thank you for laying the groundwork, UCF. We appreciate you for that. Impossible without you.
Very true. Houston, of course, basketball is not a rivalry at this time. And we can do a whole nother segment when we get further into basketball season about what rivalries are there. But yeah, I mean, there's so many that we used to have that have just kind of fizzled out now. And so we're entering almost a new age of rivalries where we're backing out from Miami. Or not us, but just Miami is fizzling out. West Virginia doesn't have the same spark. Pitt, honestly, is kind of a more aggressive rivalry now, especially the way that their players acted at the end of our home game this year. UCF is still going to be strong. So, and hey, I think Texas Tech might be a really fun rival. Battle for the red and black, especially after this first game, and knowing now that Mahomes and Travis Kelce had a bet on who had to wear the mascot head. We almost had Mahomes wearing a Bearcat mascot. That would have been great. But yeah, we're just kind of entering this new era of rivalries. And I don't know if the groundwork has fully been laid. We've got a couple building blocks, a couple pieces, but I think there's still a lot of room to grow in that department.
Yeah, and I think you kind of made a good point too about the transition that we're in, and I think that we're not necessarily alone in that. Um, let's look at classic, rivalries in the Pac-12. If you look at what happened with like Oregon and Washington, Oregon State, you look at Washington State, you look at USC, UCLA. Of course, some of these teams have all moved with each other to the Big Ten, but leaving a lot of those classic Pac-12 rivalries in the past. And with the constant ever shifting realignment, you're seeing a lot of old rivalries die off, but you're also seeing, you're seeing even the teams that necessarily aren't necessarily stuck in the middle of some kind of realignment right now. You're still seeing rivalry games that have been played for 50 plus years get canceled.
Yeah.
You even look at the Battle for the Bell, like that's not happening anymore. You have this neutral site game next year at Paycor, and then it's done.
Mm-hmm.
At least as far as what's on the schedule. So, you are going to lose some of those rivalries. I think the Miami one, obviously it's there in some capacity. It's one that's been there with a lot of history, just not relevant in this current day and age. You've surpassed them, obviously, in football. You've surpassed them in basketball. You don't play them in basketball very much. You do here time to time. We've played them a few times over the past few years, but you just don't have that kind of consistent opponent with them. So it's one of those things where I don't really consider them much of a rival anymore, even though it is a regional thing, which is great. But looking to the future, I really do like the idea too of Texas Tech. I mean, you look at the first basketball game that we had against them, super close game, comes down to like 1-2 points there at the end. In Lubbock, you steal one on the road, they're ranked. That's a huge win. And then, for Texas Tech to have a shootout game like that at home, everybody's looking for some kind of juice for their season. And it comes down to the final play like that. It's good. I think the more that these types of games get played, the more that you're in these games late and you don't have what you had last year with football where you're getting blown out by 30 points. These things happen faster. And I think it might feel stupid to just be like, rah, rah, we got to hate somebody. But like, I think these things feel good for fans and they want to have games to look forward to. And the shine of last year where it's like, oh, right, cool. We're in the Big 12 now. We get to play all these teams we've never played before. Now you're playing a few familiar teams that you got to play last year. And the first year Big 12 shine is kind of wore off already.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're like, okay, well, shit. Now I want to beat the hell out of somebody. It's not like, oh, I'm excited to play everybody. It's I want to beat somebody. I want to beat some ass.
Yeah.
And you're looking for that in your season. So the more that these things happen, I think it's the better. It ends up being better in the long run for the fan base. So, any belligerent fans of other Big 12 teams out there, spew some hate. We'll feed it. We'll feed it because everybody loves a little bit of extra juice, some extra bulletin board material for some games here. And yeah, rivalries
For
are
sure.
fun.
And yeah, rivalries are awesome. And of course, we always wish that we had some more regional ones, even though we're in a conference that spans most of the country now, as are most teams, in all honesty, now. There's not necessarily beef, I'd say, but you look at some of the bigger schools around us. You've got UK, you've got OSU, you of course have the Louisvilles, the Pitts, the West Virginias, the Indianas, all those schools that are around us that we've kind of mingled with over the years across all different sports. But yeah, I think that college sports as a whole just is kind of losing some of the regional rivalries and is going more towards conferences or new age. And we find ourselves right in that. I do have to say, though, I wish that UCLA became more of a rival.
Yeah, agreed.
We of course had those 4 games within that stretch of 2 years between
Iconic era.
basketball and football. Exactly. And looking back at it, those football games were fun. Basketball, you've got 2 very storied programs. I think that could have been a really cool striking of like a new flame, and it just didn't take off. But I think that was an opportunity that might have been missed by the athletic departments just to get some interest, but maybe that's just some interest on the Cincinnati side, and it wasn't there for UCLA. But
let's be honest, UCLA puts themselves high above everybody else in the Midwest as far as it goes, and now they're about to say we're sorry, and we bow to you, Daddy, in the Midwest. It's going rough for them.
The Pac-4 didn't know what they were getting themselves into by joining the Big 10.
Yeah. This does not need to have any more conversation. I'll end with this on a rivalry point, but for the Pac-4, specifically USC and UCLA, pray to any and every god when you have to go into Wisconsin and play a game in like late November. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. Your players are not going to be prepared for that because they come from California. They come from those regional areas from Nevada, from Arizona, from Washington. They're not used to the cold, buddy. They are going to get their ass beat by some stupid Big 10 team that should not beat them.
They might have played in a couple snow games by, more of the northern teams in the Pac-12, but every Big 10 team is a northern team. So good luck, buddies.
And they like the cold. It's not we play in it. They like that.
They want to thrive in it
hard.
Yep.
You look at injuries, you look at where it's going to hurt. So still stupid move. Don't understand it. That's enough talk on all that.
Justin, you wanted to get us kicked off with getting into basketball season. Go ahead.
It's time, Joel. We are less than 30 days away from basketball season. If you are not hyped out of your mind already for everything that we have coming, get hyped, get lit, because this team is actually going to make a lot of noise. And I don't say that as a biased Bearcats fan. They have a lot of attention nationally. Their roster looks insane. I think this team can actually be the team that, instead of talking about this is the year we go back to the tournament, instead of this is the year I hope we get back to the tournament, this is the year that you will make the tournament. This is the year that you have to make the tournament. Your roster is good enough to get there and make a run. Not even to get there, but to get past the infamous second weekend. This is that type of team.
Hey, Justin, come close real quick. Come close. I have something to tell you. A lot of fans always say, "This is the year." This is the year.
This is the year.
This is the year.
This is the year to do it. I'm serious. This team has a different vibe and a different energy to it. The roster makeup is nuts. This talent that we have on this team is far beyond, and this is no discredit to any of the very pivotal players, the guys who stuck around through all the bullshit over the past 6+ years of just turmoil that we've encountered, through the past few Bearcats seasons. This team is so far beyond end to end, top end and low end of the talent spectrum of what we have on that makeup. They are so far beyond any of those other teams. People have said this is the most talented team. I'll quote John Rothstein here. He said this is the most talented team since 2019. I think firmly, no slack or no disrespect to Jaron Cumberland, no disrespect to probably still my all-time favorite Bearcats basketball player, Trayvon Scott. No disrespect to any of these guys. This team is better than that team was. On paper, this team should blow that team out of the water. They are that good end to end. They have so much talent. The ones can guard the fives can guard the one can play the five can play the one. You have so much talent and so many distributors, so many finishers, so many playmakers, that this team realistically has such a high ceiling that if you don't do something with it, there needs to be some serious conversations about the future of not just Wes Miller, but this program, because everything is there to go and make a big run this year.
For sure. And this is rare in college sports today. You don't keep your core. They normally get poached. Yep. You normally have people go to the draft early, or, it's very rare that we have this golden opportunity. And even Skilling said that he was offered more money to go to other programs, and said that so many other players probably were in the exact same boat. And the fact that Wes Miller was able to keep this core together and bring in extra pieces on top of that, that we have 7 players that are as talented to be in the starting 5, man, we are lucky. We are knocking on wood. We are praying to whatever you want to believe in that everything goes our way this year. Everyone stays healthy. And man, Big 12 basketball, this is going to be a fun season.
Yeah. Yeah. And, this is the thing too. Like, you expect to have the talent when you go into a conference like the Big 12. You are the premier conference when it comes to this sport. You have to compete in this conference, and you have to have the roster to do it. But I mean, I think this is the biggest news of this week, and probably of this entire offseason. Whether how much you want to read into it or not, the quote from Dan about Seamus, about Jizzle, about Aziz, about these core guys that last year's team relied so heavily on, um, about them getting offers to go elsewhere. We all looked at it and we said, like, there is no way that we keep all of these guys. I think all Bearcats fans said this at the end of last year, is like, you're gonna lose somebody. You're gonna lose somebody.
We thought we would lose 1, maybe 2, but
Yeah.
none.
Yeah. And this I think just goes to show just how good of a job Wes Miller is doing, but also just how real of a person on the inside that like Wes Miller is. And that's not just like, oh, great, he got to keep players, that makes him a good person. Like, based on all the comments from players in post-game interviews, off the record, on the record, all these players have nothing but good things to say about Wes Miller. They have nothing but good things to say about this program and the trajectory that it's on. There's been a lot of noise through Wes Miller's tenure thus far, about, from former players, from, all the way back in the 90s, from the more recent players as well, of, I don't know if this guy is it. Look at the recruiting classes. Look at what he's doing. He is bringing in top 50 recruits. He's bringing in top 30 recruits. He's bringing in some of the best players in the country. In the portal, he is a dog, an absolute hound when it comes to the portal. And when it comes to getting the guys that he needs in to build this roster, all of those pieces are there. Everything is in the right spot to make this happen and to put this program back in the national spotlight where it belongs. And I genuinely believe, as a biased Bearcats fan, but as a fan of college basketball is more fun when Cincinnati is a good basketball team. And kill me now, strike me, smite me God for saying this if it's a bad thing, but I also think the same thing is true for Xavier. When these two teams are very good and they go into the shootout and they're playing as two very good teams with a lot to gain from this game, and it's not just, one team's ranked or neither team is ranked, and we just need that one good non-conference game to look better for our season. When both of these teams are ranked, this game is gritty. This game has so much more on the line. You have a lot more to prove. And I think that this is that roster that can actually go and win that game. You have it at home. You have all the pieces there. You got to go and do it. And so, of course, I have to bring up that game. But besides the point, a lot of hype for the season.
One more thing. You brought up the X game. And, of course, basketball season, it's upcoming, but we're not there yet. There's a lot more basketball that we will talk about as we get closer to the season. This is just our little preview, our little teaser, the trailer before the movie. But we are still in the thick of football season. We have a lot more football to talk about on this show, but some final basketball points, of course. Tyler McKinley, unfortunately, out with ACL surgery. Heartbreaking for him, for the Bearcats team. Of course, he was going to be an integral part of this team. But hey, still a very bright future ahead of him. And just hope for a full and speedy recovery.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think he was going to make a pretty big splash in this team this year. But I at least feel better about this situation, knowing that you have a guy like Arlington Page coming in from USC. You got a guy who is now going to be a sophomore, who Didn't get a ton of action at USC in the way that he probably had hoped or expected. And of course, comes right back to Wes Miller. And again, this is another thing I look at too. Like, again, props to Wes Miller. You have a guy that you were firmly in the mix. You're in the top 3, 4. He ends up choosing the LA school with the money. That's what he goes for. That's what every other player in college basketball is probably going to look at. They're going to go for the sunshine of LA, the city, and the money. But guess what? Once he got there, it might not have been all that. He didn't get what he wanted. It wasn't what he expected. And where does he go? He's got anywhere else he could go, and he goes right back to Wes Miller. I think that just goes to show you that these players want to choose this guy. At the end of the day, it's a very difficult decision. And when you get a player like that you recruited very heavily, and then they come back to you in the end of it, I think it just goes to show how good he is at building those relationships and how important he is to these players, because they know that they can be their best with that coach. You don't transfer for nothing. You transfer to a program where you think you can go pro, where you think that you can make a statement and be a core player. I think Arlington Page made that kind of decision here. And so, again, props to Wes Miller, doing a fantastic job on the recruiting trail, doing a fantastic job bringing in the talent that this team needs to have in order to make some noise this season, because I think they are going to do it. Last 2 things here. Rothstein had his visit this past week. Bearcats look like a firm position in the top 25 to start the season, which I think is great. Starting the season ranked, I think is just going to be awesome. I can't even remember the last time that had happened. It has been quite some time. We're talking probably like 17, 18. I don't even think that happened in 19. And this is a team that deserves to be in the top 25, just with everything that they have going momentum wise.
And here's the thing about being ranked in the preseason. There are those that unfortunately have a vote that don't actually watch the games. They just look at final scores. They just look at what everyone else is saying. And so coming into the season, already possibly being ranked, gives us a lot of street cred moving through the season, where if we drop a game we're not supposed to, or, if we're not performing as well as we should, we kind of still have the, have the upper hand in the, we're supposed to be good, so people think we're good. Granted, this team will be good. I'm not saying that's anything we have to be concerned about, but it just gives us that extra edge in terms of getting the national spotlight, getting some of the bigger networks, the later primetime tip times. It just does a lot for the team to be recognized in that way.
Absolutely. And they've been hovering, at least in every single preseason, like media poll of anything that we've seen thus far. They've been hovering between like 18 and 22. They've been firmly in that spot. And I think that's a great spot to start because, like you said, let the chips fall where they may, take care of business in non-conference, win the big games in non-conference. You're going to climb that ladder pretty fast, and you're going to put yourself in a great position to start play in the Big 12.
It is much easier to climb if you're already in the national spotlight than it is to, start from the ground up.
Yeah, to play your way in. And those things make a huge difference at the end of the season too, because if you slip up and you fall from grace, at least you were in there at some point, versus last year where we never really cracked that top 25, but they looked damn good. They were right on the edge. And every time they got like they were one win away from getting back in the top 25, securing a little bit more confidence in the team, and it slipped. So starting there, like you said, is a very good spot. I will just say these last 2 things here. The Bearcats currently rank at number 20 in the field of 68 in their preseason poll, which is great to see. So love to see those kind of things. Love to see more media outlets talking about the Bearcats. It's only good for the basketball team. And the last fun point. There was a quote from Connor Hickman this week on his sneaky bounce and dunk on Rayvon Griffith and JT Smith. Shout out him. Just had asked a question about his vertical, because he had just insane numbers. And so his immediate response was to talk about his dunk on Rayvon. And I just think these things are fun because this is a guy that you probably wouldn't have expected that. You look at him from what we played against Bradley, just sort of like this 3-point shooter, good all around player, but 3-point shooter. And you don't expect that because, like he said, he's like, I don't think people expect that from me because I'm 6'2", white, and I have a comb over. Like, what a line. Like, that's just fun. That's just fun to get people hyped and get people excited. Like, and I think that this is a point in time where, again, you look at that starting five. He might not necessarily be in that starting five, but I can guarantee you he's going to get a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
And this is a team that, thankfully, with that depth, you can feel confident. Whereas last year, the floor didn't necessarily fall out, but your roster sort of made its cuts by the time you got to Big 12 play. I think a lot of guys are going to be firmly in the mix late into non-conference and into the start of Big 12 play.
Justin, basketball season gives us a lot to be excited for, but still so much to talk about in terms of football season and a lot of our Big 12 friends. So let's get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we do that, speaking of football, we do have a game possibly coming up this week. Keeping our fingers crossed. Again, hopefully everything is good. Good vibes for our friends in Florida. Speaking of our friends in Florida, we have some gear for you this week. There's some hype about basketball. There's some hype about this football game. Bearcats are going to play in the Bounce House this weekend, hopefully. And with that said, awesome gear. This is a nice little t-shirt matchup there. Awesome shirt from Charlie Hustle of the Bounce House. Again, part of their stadium series that they did for the Big 12 this season. Lots of fun. And just overall a very cool graphic that's very wearable for any time of the year. And of course, Bearcats basketball. Why not get hyped? Let's throw that Cincinnati NBA Jam style shirt there. Love that one. It's a great pickup. And of course, that shirt too is on sale. So you can always pick that up for a little bit cheaper. I think it's about $25, $25 on their site right now. So if you are not already part of the Charlie Hustle fan base, go and grab a shirt. Go and grab a t-shirt, a hoodie, long sleeve, doesn't matter. Grab something, use the promo code 101215, and you'll get 15% off of all non-sale items. That deal is good through the entire season, and as long as we keep giving you this ad. So, again, go to www.charliehustle.com, use that promo code 101215, and get you some awesome gear. Joel, it's time for the back half of the show. We've talked plenty enough. I don't even know how we do this. We just talk so much about all this, and now it's time for Viva La Cash. Bring me the money, crisp those little fingers up, find me those dollars. I need to start like leaving actually, I don't have $1 here. I need to like bring $1 here and just give the little dollar
Money,
pop.
please.
Money, please. Bring me my money. We have some picks for you this week, but before anything else, of course, we have to start with the Bearcats. The Bearcats, as it currently sits, and I'm actually going to update this live, a little bit different. It was a 59 current game total for the Bearcats playing in Florida, in Orlando. Game total sits at 58.5. Joel, over or under?
I think both these teams have kind of shown that they let their opponents score a lot of points. So I'm going to go over.
Yep. And that would be a classic. That'd be a classic game there if we could get that. If we could get that over, and I think that'd be fun. I think that's what everybody's hoping for. Yeah. Show some more offense like you showed last week. But hopefully your defense performs a little bit better than failing to shut down all but 2 drives. All right. With that said, I am going to take the under. As much as it makes sense to go and get a lot of points in this game, I think the Bearcats defense is going to buckle down. And I think that UCF's defense has looked at what they've done the past few weeks. Holding Florida to 24 is a so-so result. Getting blown out by Colorado, not great. I think their defense is going to try to crack down this week. UCF's defense has a few Bearcats players on it. They're going to be cracking down, and UC, absolutely UC. It's great to say in this situation. The Bearcats have a lot to work on defense. I think both of them are really going to push to try to make a lot of strides from where they were under.
I don't hate taking the under. It is a grass field at the Bounce House. If they do end up playing there, it's just going to be absolutely sloshed. So
that's true.
So we'll of course see where the game is played, if the game is played, when at all. All those details are sure to come out. probably right after we release this episode.
It's usually how it happens.
Yes, but
Nothing
if
like
this
the
game
classic weather under.
yes, exactly.
Joel, spread currently sits at 3.5. Bearcats not favored. How are you taking this one?
Got to take
Bearcats
the Cats.
cover.
Got to take the Cats.
Yeah, I
You
again,
can't not.
You can't not take the Cats to cover.
The show that we don't take the Cats is our last show.
That's fair. That's fair. That is the point that we have officially, as a podcast, as a fan base, we have given up when we refused to pick the Bearcats. And that happened last year. We started to do that last year, unfortunately.
You probably made a lot of money last year.
It's still early enough to not be in that situation. But sorry, I actually said 3.5. As it currently sits, it's at 3. I would still taking the Bearcats cover. You could take a push again. You could take a push.
Not taking a push again.
But a push would require that the Bearcats don't win. So Bearcats win, and they're going to cover. I'm taking them on the money line. This is going to be a fun game, but I think this is one that the Bearcats are just going to have to go out and get. So Bearcats cover the spread. Bearcats win, and I'm taking the under. Joel's got the same thing, but with the over. Great. Cool. Moving on. Next on Viva La Cash. Joel, you got some picks for me, buddy?
I have so many picks for you. Justin, we have football Tuesday through Saturday now. It is a gorgeous thing. That's just college football. We're not even talking about Sundays and Mondays. Just college football, Tuesday through Saturday. So many games to choose from. Recording this live on Wednesday. There's a couple games we already missed. So can, of course, choose those. But my first pick, number 24, Illinois, coming off of a bye. Their last loss was at Penn State in a very, very close one. They are 21.5-point favorites over Purdue. Purdue is the walking mat of the Big Ten this year. I think that they cover that, actually. I got to take Illinois.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think you would imagine that they're going to be playing a little bit pissed off, as many teams do. I got a fun one for you. This is the first one for me this week. Number 16, Utah.
Ooh.
Looking a little fraudulent. Just a little fraudulent. Maybe not all they were cracked up to be. Some early struggles. Don't have 50-year-old Cam Rising in there. A little bit difficult. However, they play at Arizona State this week. Arizona State impressing a lot of people. I think that's one that could be really interesting. Arizona State is a 4.5-point dog in that game. I would take Arizona State at home to cover that 4.5-point spread. And if you're feeling lucky, throw something on the money line too. Take the Sun Devils.
Look, sticking with the old Pac-12, Oregon and Ohio State play this weekend. Oregon is in their all-new blackout uniforms. Look, they're my Road to Glory team, at least my first Road to Glory team in the newest NCAA. So that's one of the games of the week. There's so many games this weekend, but that over-under is only set at 53.5. A lot of people are expecting this to be a defensive showdown, but that just seems way too low. Points, bet the over.
Fair enough. Next game for you. This is probably the marquee game of the week. We will absolutely mention this in like 2 minutes about our Electric Factory game of the week. We have the Red River rivalry. Texas, number 1. Is college sports better when Texas is number 1 in the country? Who knows? But Texas, number 1 at number 18, Oklahoma. It's going to be a lot of bloodshed in this game. But what I will say is Oklahoma is a 14-point dog. Texas looks fantastic this year. They look like the championship favorite. They are the team to beat. They are a clear and away number 1 team. However, 14-point dog, I would take Oklahoma at home to cover that. I think it feels pretty safe. And not only that, you look at the games they've had thus far this season, they've proved, if not to be a good offensive team, a very stout defensive team, playing some tough enough teams. But thus far, they've at least held all of their opponents under 25 points. And so I think I'd feel pretty good about, even though Texas is a high-powered offense, that they can keep this game close and not get blown out. So take them to cover.
Side note, there was an Oklahoma linebacker who this week stated that Cincinnati was actually the loudest game that he's played in.
Great. Thank you, Joel. I wanted to bring that up on the show and I forgot.
Yep.
Perfect segue.
So props to Nippert. Props to the UC fans as usual.
Keep it loud.
Keep it loud. My last pick for this week, the Golden Gophers. Man, that was a fun game against USC. Getting that win. I think that this week they are going to finish conquering the LA market. They are 5-point favorites at UCLA, but I think they cover that and take the Gophers outright.
Huh.
UCLA does not look good this year.
They don't. That is an interesting one. My last one of the week, I'm going to stick with the Big 12 here because this is just fun. I feel like I've ended up picking one of these two teams in these picks at least once every other week. We got Arizona at number 14 BYU. This week, BYU does play, Joel. They do play.
I'm so proud of you, Justin.
Guess what? BYU in Provo is the college, not the college game day, the big noon kickoff game this week. Lots of fun. Love to see a program like that get an environment like that. It's always fun when you get to bring those national media coverages to your market. With that said, Cougars, 3.5-point favorites in that game. Arizona, shaky at best offense. They have one receiver. They have obviously one quarterback, but they have one set there. And if it goes good, they're scoring a lot of points. If it doesn't, they're not scoring many points. However, BYU, I think they can put some points on the board. Arizona, I think they can also do that. And every time you think there's two high-powered offenses, they're going to score a lot of points and take the over, you take the under. However, all of that to say, 48.5 in this game. Take the over. I think it's going to be a little bit of a shootout here, and I think it's going to be fun. BYU, fantastic defense. I do think that this one's going to be interesting. Take the over in that 48.5. Joe, give me your electric factory game, man.
Look, you can choose any game this weekend to be your electric factory. This is the college football Saturday that before the season started, people were looking towards this weekend and saying, don't you dare hold your fall wedding on October the 12th. Don't you do that. Yeah. And even now that we've gotten here, there's more matchups in the top 25 than we probably even thought. There's Texas, Oklahoma, the 1 versus 18, 16 Utah at Arizona State, OSU, Oregon, talked about that. Number 9 Ole Miss versus 13 LSU. Number 4 Penn State at USC. USC trying to rebound against the Golden Gophers. Cal, who should be 5-0.
Yes, robbed.
At 22 Pitt. 18 Kansas State at Colorado. Colorado is also 4-1. Very close to being ranked. Arizona at BYU, like you mentioned. Plus, there's so many non-P4. I put P5 in the notes, but non-P4 contenders right now. Navy, Army, Boise, UNLV. You can have your choice. This is an electric field. There are no electric games. It's an electric field.
Yeah, and I think to the point on the Navy and Army situation there, very interesting. Going to be a storyline to watch. And also Boise, another story to watch because Ashton Jeanty, he got pulled in the last game at halftime. Bro had 180 yards, was cooking them. I think if they decide to just keep, I know they're resting this guy. It makes sense. You want to keep him healthy. You want to contend for the playoff. You got to have that guy healthy. What I will say is he looks right now like he is on pace, even with being pulled at halves, multiple games thus far, is on pace to break the all-time rushing record in a season. Very interesting to watch. So
I think we'll see it. This is going to be nice. This is going to be a lot of fun. And there's a lot of kids out on social media that are saying, man, imagine making Boise State interesting. You don't know. Boise State used to be very interesting.
Yes. They are an interesting team. I feel like very consistently an interesting team. You know what else is interesting? the Big 12. And the Big 12 has plenty of interesting players and matchups every single week. Where are these gnats coming from? I don't know. They keep flying around. Joel, we are going to make this quick. We're going to do our quick rundown of our Big 12 head-to-head. Guess what? Our Charlie Hustler of the Week. This is the second time this season that he has won this award. The dude is a dog. Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State, 182 rushing yards on 25 rushes with 2 tutties. Dude's a dog. Like, I came out of the woodwork, has performed incredibly this season, and is a key factor to why Arizona State's been winning the games that they have, and is firmly in the driver's seat right now when it comes to contending in the Big 12 in a way that nobody expected. Yeah. Joe, Aspirinaholic of the Week.
Probably Texas Tech Zona. Look, Texas Tech got out to a first half lead, but Zona crawled their way back. It was 19-18 in the second half. Texas Tech took the lead with 2:21 left in the game. Arizona got the ball back and fumbled on their first play after the kickoff. Tech won that game, but man, that was close in the second half.
Absolutely. Guess what? We got a bozo this week. We got bozos every week. You know what? Before I even get to the Big 12 bozo, because there's so many, I just want to give a special shout out to congratulate all of the fine people of Nashville on your wonderful win for Vandy. Congratulations. Bama sucks once again. Awesome event. I was not in town for it. I guess what happens when I leave Nashville for a weekend is Vandy wins in a game that they're not supposed to. Covered like a 22-point spread and won the game outright. Insane.
Either Vandy wins when you're out of town or Steve gets married. So we've got to have one of the two every weekend.
Yeah. We'll see if Steve gets married again. Over under on that? No. Anyways, our bozo of the week is Oklahoma State. Gundy has been there for an eternity, and every year looks like the year that Oklahoma State is going to go and just, do the thing and be the Big 12 team. Well, guess what? It's probably not going to be this year. Got absolutely punked by a West Virginia team that has looked fairly mid, not great, not bad. They just look like they're in the middle somewhere in the Big 12. Got punked. Got absolutely punked at home, 38-14. Tough. And question mark on TCU. Lost to Houston. Houston, of all teams, 30-19, who came off back-to-back goose eggs. So those are your two bozos this week.
Double bozo.
And maybe even TCU is probably the stronger bozo for the double shutout and just letting that team score 30 points.
Never go double bozo.
I believe that was I believe that was in Fort Worth too. I could be wrong, but I think that was in Fort Worth too. Anyways,
it was in Texas. We know that.
We know that much. We know that much. Joel, final point this week on the Big 12 head-to-head most watchable game of the week. Who was it?
Kansas, Arizona State. 5 lead changes in the second half. It was just absolutely gripping. Kansas took the win 35-31, but those games are fun. Those types of games are fun.
Yep. And wait, did you say Kansas won that game?
Yeah.
Arizona State won that game.
Oh, I had it wrong on the grid.
Arizona State won that game. They scored on, I believe, the final drive of that game to come back and end up winning. But like you said, 5 lead changes in the second half. Exciting, riveting stuff in the Big 12 happening there. Joel, I said that was our final point. Our actual final point, quick update on the Big 12 head-to-head draft. Your team and my team your team / Steve's team and my team went 2-3 this week. After some really strong starts in non-conference, which you could probably expect, some clunkers the past few weeks. This week, 2-3 for each. Both teams had 3 buys. Not earning a lot of points this week. My team still in the lead, 28-16 on the season. Your team, 27-14.
I think you're in the lead. You're in the lead for total wins
by total points,
but winning percentage. I think Steve and I got it.
Yes, and that is what we are actually doing this whole thing based on. So. Let me have my wins, Joel. Let me have my wins. Anyways, that covers our Big 12 head-to-head. We have the final point on the show, just about to crest an hour. We're in this thing. We're just about to crest an hour, but guess what? we could make this thing fast. I'm going to try to do it as fast as we can. But we're in the point of the year when we have 7, actually 8, but 7 different sports competing at the same time. So the Bearcats Sports Wrap-Up, which I have not been doing due diligence to because Steve always does such a fantastic job. I have done the due diligence. We're going to give this full rundown in probably not 2 minutes because there's too many things to cover, but we're going to do it as fast as we can. Bearcats Sports Wrap-Up is coming to you in just a second. Joel, did you have a question or statement?
I'll wrap the show with it. Go ahead.
All right. Guess what, folks? Put 2 minutes on the clock. Probably not going to be 2 minutes. We need 2 minutes and 20 seconds because that's what we get for free on Twitter. Here we, big breath, go. Bearcat Sports Wrap-Up. We're going to start with women's volleyball. They have been on an absolute heater this season. They did have a loss this past week at Iowa State, losing 1-3, but had a 3-0 sweep on UCF. They're 11-3, 4-0 at home, and 5-1 on the road. Faith Frame, second Big 12 Rookie of the Week this season. Fantastic. They play Kansas State on Thursday and number 8 Kansas on Saturday. Go women's volleyball. Next up, cross country. In the Joe Piani Notre Dame Invitational this past week, they finished 12th in men's and 8th in women's overall. Freshman Patrick Kiprop finished first in the 8K with a time of 22:27. Oh my God, I can't even comprehend that. I can't even run a 5K in like 10 minutes over that. Junior Claire Kurtzinger finished first in the women's 6K with a time of 17:18. Congratulations to you two. Keep finishing first on that finish line. Bearcats Baseball beat Indiana 15-8 in their fall exhibition through a doubleheader. Freshman Ryan Taransky, 3 for 4 game with 2 home runs and a first inning grand slam. They have another exhibition against Pitt this week on Saturday for some more fall ball. Women's soccer, 4-1 win in Gettler against Houston. 9 shots on goal with 4 different scorers. Congratulations to Ellie Fowler, Emma Schmelzer, Maddie Swingler, and hold on, there's one more. And Paige Miller. All 4 of them had a goal. 4 different goal scorers in that game. Congratulations. They are 6-6-1 on the season. They play at Iowa State Thursday night and at OK State on Sunday. Men's golf lost in the Big 12 match play to number 24 Utah, finishing 8th this week. They play at Michigan State's Quail Valley Invitational on Sunday in Florida. We'll see if that still happens. And women's tennis. The Bearcats recorded 5 doubles victories and 15 more in singles action over the 2-day event. Cincinnati picked up an event high of 15 singles wins and 5 double. I just said the same thing over and over again. 5 Bearcats won all of their singles matches this week, and they play in the ITA in Murfreesboro, just next door to me this week. So that wraps up all of those sports. There was a ton going on.
Justin,
congratulations.
Go back to women's golf. You skipped women's golf.
Women's golf. Oh my God, I missed one. God, there's so many. Like we said,
keep going.
I tried to fit them all in. Women's golf finished second at the Pat Bradley Invitational, clearing third by 11 strokes. So many good things happening here. Set a program record in team score with 275 and the lowest record tournament score. Can't even say that right. They did great things. Set 2 records there as a team. All 5 Bearcats finished in the top 25. They played at the Kansas Tourney, which concluded today, finishing 11th, and they play at Georgia Southern's event next Monday and Tuesday. We went over. We tried to fit it all in. There's too many sports to cover. It's all happening at the same time. Usually there's like 3 or 4. This time there was like 7, and we didn't even include swimming and diving, which had an event as well, which was just the red and black meet. Joel, it is so hard to fit all of that in there. There's so many topics.
But you did a great job.
Congratulations.
You did a great job.
Congratulations to all of the sports. Everybody got a win in some fashion this week, doing some great things, and we love to see the Bearcats sports all succeeding at the same time. It's hard when you just have so much success that you can't fit it all in 2 minutes. So congratulations to them all. And once again, if you don't already go to some of these games, go to those games, support these teams. You can buy tickets. Some of these games you can just walk right into. It is absolutely crucial to support these teams because even though football and basketball are the big name sports in this university, these programs are foundational for the athletic department and you want to see them win. So get out there, support them, help them get wins by making those environments rowdy. And women's volleyball, like I said last week, we've said it all season long. We're going to continue to say it. I think they're our 3rd sport. They're crushing it. They are crushing it right now. And they look really, really good. And if they can get a win against number 8 Kansas, oh boy, vibes are going to be super high all the way through the ceiling.
Go Bearcats. Yeah.
Go Bearcats. Go Bearcats. Well, that's all we've got for you this week. Like I said, we've crested an hour. Try to keep it as close as we can to that, but we kept it tight. We kept it close. We kept it close.
I have one final thought to share,
Right.
because the game time for next week's game, our homecoming game against Arizona State, has been revealed. And as Thane Steven on Twitter put it, nip at night is no more. We are now nip at noon.
We are now nip at noon. And guess what? We're talking about that Bearcats homecoming game. There's one team that we mentioned earlier that I've just completely forgot about until this very moment. And we already talked about this other sport. We talked about basketball. Guess who has an exhibition against pre-mentioned team, Ohio State? There is a preseason exhibition game where we will host Ohio State on October 18th next week. So it is a charity exhibition game. Get out there, go raise some money, and watch the Bearcats put on a show against Ohio State and hopefully beat those Buckeyes.
Lower bowl tickets have already sold out, so you can only get in being in the upper bowl.
I can't believe I didn't mention this until then. I completely forgot, left it off the docket. But
and while we're talking basketball, final note, we'll get into this further into the season, but a lot of game times and networks were revealed for this basketball season, and we have many bones to pick, but just to leave you angry at the end of our show, the Xavier game and Kansas basketball games are both 2 p.m. tip times on ESPN+.
Very good. Very good. I muted myself.
We are so happy to be in the Big 12, but it seems like nothing has changed.
Nothing at all. Joel, speaking of nothing changing, we're going to round out the show the way we always do. But before that, a quick mention of our network, the 1012 Network. Shout out to you, Phil. Shout out to the entire 1012 Network. We all love hearing everything about all of these other teams. It's your one-stop shop for everything Big 12. So head on over there, give them a follow, and listen to the show. You get everything that we give you and much, much more in that show. So make sure to check that out. And again, thank you to our sponsors, Charlie Hustle, as always, for powering the show. We are Viva La Cats, and we will be back next week, hopefully after a football game and hopefully with some more Bearcats wins. Viva
La Cats.
Yeah.